What's shaking, my Sharkticons? So the 35th anniversary of the Transformers the movie happened upon all of us. A film soaked in the very core of the loving, earnest, far-out futuristic flair of what we love about that particular era of the series, taking Transformers into a much wider universe of infinite and strange possibilities, which lit its way straight into all our hearts and defined that hopeful rejection of nihilistic existential dread in favor of the wild, daring, faith in your friends attitude that Transformers as a whole grew with. So in celebration, let's ride in style with none other than Kingdom RODIMUS Prime.
Arise, RODIMUS Prime.
Now as the story goes with this character, RODIMUS Prime started out life as the turbo-revving young punk hot rod, who happened upon leadership with his climactic fight with Galvatron in Transformers the movie, lighting the Autobots' darkest hour, stuff that you have to cover when talking about this character. Now this is a figure that's been a long time coming, because you see, the hot rod form of this character has had a lot of different figures ranging from great to pretty good, while the RODIMUS Prime version of this character hasn't. I guess that hot rod's probably easier to make a toy out of due to the smaller alt mode, but for the longest time it just seemed like there was only ever hot rod toys or hot rod toys called RODIMUS because of legal reasons. And I've just always wanted a good, big, authoritative toy of RODIMUS Prime that turns into that huge space Winnebago, and there just kind of weren't. There was the Power of the Primes figure from 2017, which was fine for its day but hasn't adapted well now that the climate's changed. And even the G1 toy kind of sucks if we're being honest. So the announcement of this new RODIMUS figure was a big deal. They had another opportunity to finally get it right this time. And baby, to put it lightly, they crushed it. This right here is just the definitive RODIMUS Prime toy. Not even of the Classics generation toys, but like of all time, maybe? Comparing it to this really wonky design reference, it's just the coolest looking version of RODIMUS that I believe they could have done. I'm really impressed with the paintwork on this figure, like how the thighs and the back spoiler are painted orange and yellow respectively. It just really brings out the detail in the sculpting. Same with the two-toned reds on the waist, as well as the colors on the wrist section. The head sculpt also looks really good. His face appears very stern and stoic, way more so than the Studio Series Hot Rod face, but the silver absolutely makes it work for me. And the rest of the helmet just knocks it out of the park. It's just so good. I guess the sculpted indentations on the front of the spoiler look a little too overdeveloped and not as smooth as the back, but if my biggest issue with this robot mode amounts to a small nitpick, then this figure's really sitting strong. The articulation is also stellar, serving just about every flavor of posing power you could predictably require. Highlights for me include the double-jointed elbows, as well as the articulated fingers! Oh, this was a great unexpected surprise for me. His index finger can move individually from the others so you can make him do this authoritative pointing pose. Seriously, this is some masterpiece level stuff. Now I don't own the original Power of the Primes RODIMUS figure, however I do have the evil black repaint of it, RODIMUS Unicronus. Comparing the two side by side, the previous version is a whopper alright. However, you can definitely feel the increased budget in the Kingdom lad. Way stronger joints, more painted detail, and it just looks way better and more streamlined compared to the clunky compromised compadre with an entire refrigerator glued to his back. I'm not saying that the gimmick of making a RODIMUS toy made out of a smaller hot rod figure and the whole trailer wasn't worth trying, but what a surprise. The robot that looks better is the one that had way more money put into it and didn't try to force unrelated components together. Speaking of trailers, he comes with this big ol' thing that makes up most of the finished alt mode. I'll get more into this after transformation, but when split open, you find this thing absolutely showered with more weapon ports than strictly necessary. But that's where the accessories come in. Included here is this large folded up turret thing that can plug in and turn the trailer into a battle station. This is so cool. It has these rotatable handle things that slide into RODIMUS' hands, as well as these huge honking blast effects to make it look like it's firing. This is so much fun, and it's a really great callback to the G1 Figures trailer battle station. It's also got a connecty thing, so you can, I guess, connect it to other Transformers if that's what you're into. Also along for the ride is this elongated foldable blaster thing true to the RODIMUS roots. And since this thing has two pegs, you can make the figure hold it with two hands, which makes it look unbelievably awesome. He also comes with what is called the Sword of Primus, which I take it is a comics thing. It looks really good though, with the scrumptious silver and the delicious detailing. And finally, you can open up the figure's chest to reveal the Matrix of Leadership. And as every modern RODIMUS should be able to do, he can do the lightning of the darkest hour pose with it, along with an additional blue effects piece. And it all fits nice and snug back in the figure's chest. For size comparison, here's Kingdom Rodimus with Earthrise Optimus, Kingdom Cyclonus, Kingdom Ultra Magnus, Studio Series Hot Rod, and the rest of the 86 movie fam. Overall, this robot mode is basically as perfect as I could have hoped for. Pretty much everything about it works for me. Truthfully, it's just incredible. I know you're expecting a snappy zinger that transitions to the transformation sequence, but I just can't think of one. This figure's distractingly good. Deal with it. The transformation is a bit fiddly here and there, but it's absolutely manageable. Everything tabs in where it should, and it's noticeably more involved and complex than the previous Commander class figures. The freaking wheels transform! Now the main robot turns into this rather big hood engineless version of Hot Rod's alt mode. I'm really pleased that the main robot actually has a vehicle mode all to itself, independent of the trailer. It makes the figure feel that much more complete and cohesive, especially compared to what other RODIMUS figures looked like sans trailer. And for those interested, here it is next to Studio Series 86 Hot Rod. But attaching the full trailer section onto him, there's just no denying that this right here is RODIMUS Prime. It's just glorious to say the least. I know some people like to make jokes saying this looks like a Winnebago, but with the long imposing flames and the large silver rods making a statement, it just really gets me. It's got some weapon ports so you can attach some of the weapons if you wish, but I don't think it really needs any of them. If this thing was approaching you at full speed, tell me you wouldn't be scared. Plus, I'm not sure what having a melee weapon on a car is supposed to achieve. I suppose the front's longer than it needs to be compared to the animation model, but it's not a deal breaker by any means, especially when the trailer has opening compartments. The front flap can open here, along with the underside baking tray that slides out from beneath. Finally, you can open up this ramp with these parts accompanied by working pistons! I'm truly impressed by how many of the different car bots this thing can house, but just be wary that there's not enough real estate for it to house everything. I guess it's also worth mentioning these black pieces that I suppose are supposed to be smoke. They peg in okay, but I'd be impressed if any single person uses these more than once. So for size comparison, here it is next to Earthrise Optimus Prime, Power of the Prime's Rodimus Unicronus, and Studio Series 86 Hot Rod. I'm so happy that within the past year we finally got fully great, satisfying figures of both forms of this character. It absolutely fills a collection void deep down. Now I know that upon this figure's announcement there was lots of moaning and wisecracking from the very smart and interesting people on Twitter who wanted to snark about, "Oh, this is just a Voyager class figure at 4 times the price. I can't believe Hasbro's making us buy this," just as they were slamming that pre-order button. But some people were genuinely curious about if this is really worth the Commander class price point. Like, could this not have been a Leader class toy? And while this figure is a bit pricier than most mainline Transformers toys, there are a few main points I want to make. Firstly, I have the feeling that if this was a third-party toy that cost the same or more, the Transformers fanbase wouldn't even bat an eye. And secondly, if this means anything to you, the figure, plus its accessories, is roughly twice as heavy as the Power of the Prime's Leader figure, and is about as heavy as the other Commander class figures. And while Jetfire and Skylynx were massive figures with relatively basic transformations, this is an average size figure with a complex transformation and a high parts count. So, honestly, yeah, I think it's worth the Commander class price point. And you can absolutely feel the budget that went into this thing, from the joints to the paint, to the transformation and the overall style and quality of this thing. But yeah, if it needs to be said again, this is basically a great Rodimus Prime figure. It's just about everything I needed it to be, and even more. It just feels, looks, and is superb. It is pretty prime, alright. So thank you all so much for watching and listening. And please, stay hot.